if you ask at that point of time, if you asked anyone in OLX, what does a good manager look like? What is a good manager for OLX? Every manager might have a very different view.
Hi, I'm Sylvie Milverton, CEO of Lynx Educate. This is Talent is Everywhere. We're here to talk about how to keep talent and how to develop talent in order to build a strong business. We'll interview leaders to hear their best experiences of how they invested in people. Today, we're speaking with Manjuri Sinha, who is the VP of Talent Success and DEI at OLX, which is a company building sustainable marketplaces where millions of people buy and sell cars, find houses, get jobs, headquartered in Amsterdam with around 3,000 employees. And prior to OLX, she's at Zalando and is also an executive committee member of the hire community on the list of Talent 100. So we're super happy to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Sylvie. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Great. And so as per our format, we're going to, talk about really a case study. And when we were planning this, we were talking about how you've really, like the work you've done at OLX in your role of bringing together all the HR functions under one umbrella, really focusing on boosting engagement to drive performance, especially in a cost-conscious way, which is, the key to these times. So maybe you can just start by giving us the business context for this initiative and what problem you are trying to solve.
Absolutely. And I think just to add to what you said, Sylvie, it's bringing all talent together, not all the HR functions together. So just to clarify on that. The business context is a couple of things in the background. Number one was overall an HR transformation that the organization was on the journey already, and this was kicked off by our previous CHRO, Shlomit. And as a part of that, we were looking at different models and different systemic approach to HR, as Josh Person calls it. Last year, along the lines of this transformation, we also looked at the business context when we were decoupling from one of our investment areas in the autos world in different continents. That's where we also looked at certain silver linings and opportunity of breaking the silos as such that talent has, right? So in our previous setup and in a lot of organizations, we have silos of talent acquisition, talent development, and engagement, and employee experience and DEI. And this was the opportunity that we took to see, hey, now that we are looking at right-sizing ourselves, how do we go about it, and what would be the best model for the business context? And at that point of time, one of the challenges that we were facing was coming out of the pandemic impact, as well as the tech winter, the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war. We had our challenges like any other tech organization, and we had gone through our share of layoffs because of our strategic business decision, also decoupling with certain teams, etc. And engagement henceforth was really low for the organization. One of the biggest challenges for the business was also to get this engagement up, to ensure, of course, that engagement, when engagement is up, business performance is up, productivity is up. And that was the business challenge to solve. To keeping that in the forefront, that's when we looked at how can we shape the model for talent to be more seamless and be fast in releasing and designing talent products for the organization. And that's when the decision of putting talent together under one leader and one team was kind of taken last year.
Interesting. And so as an organization, are you always measuring engagement? Like, did you see, especially on the confluence of all these events, that it had gone down, or was it like a feeling of realizing like, okay, we've done all these initiatives, we see it, we need to be mindful of this?
We have been tracking engagement, Sylvie. So till last year, the tracking was done on a regular basis. That was yearly, so March to March is something that we do. We would look at our engagement surveys all across the organization on different parameters along the lines of the Gallup questions, etc. And that's where we looked at the indication of the drop, and it went down from the previous year's engagement survey as well. We used to do a slight bit of a spot check in the month of October, but then we also realized this was an interesting bit that we realized last year. In our organization and in the world that we live in, things are changing so fast that a yearly engagement survey actually doesn't give the pulse of the employee. So that's when we also decided to move from a yearly engagement survey to something called as mini pulses. And we started doing short surveys every 2 months to get the pulse of the employees. So, for example, if we had a particular initiative or a communication drive that happened in the month of May or June, then we can actually have some targeted questions there to assess the pulse of the employees as well. And in so doing, also enable our managers, because then managers can get really close to their teams and look at what they can action with their teams as well to move that engagement up.
Yeah, that makes sense. And actually, that leads me to the next thing I want to talk about, which was your manager capability framework, that you said that as you were like launching these initiatives and bringing everything together, where you wanted to start was managers. So we know that when people make decisions, and if you like your job, it's obviously if you have a good manager. But how did you think about this framework? Like, why was it important to start there? And how did you decide what good looks like?
Very good question, Sylvie. I think number one is necessity is the mother of invention. And this was our necessity when I was talking about the business challenge as such. Our necessity was looking at engagement and taking engagement up. The second one was, where do we double down? What do we do? And at that point of time, we didn't have the world's resources, so we had to really brutally prioritize on where can we double down. Going back to some data from Gallup that says that 70% of employees' engagement can be categorized or can be related to the manager. So, the manager actually has this huge impact on the employees' engagement. So that's where we thought, let's work on this bit. And it's basics, but we haven't gone to basics or gone back to hygiene for a number of years, right? So we've had a lot of programs around a lot of things, but not really enabled the core, which is the manager that has a connect with the employees. So with this, we decided, okay, let's look at launching a capability framework as such. Sounds very basic on going back to the drawing board. Even if you ask at that point of time, if you asked anyone in OLX, what does a good manager look like? What is a good manager for OLX? Every manager might have a very different view. So we had to first of all go back to the drawing board and understand that for ourselves. And thankfully, there was work done in the employee experience team with having some focus groups around with managers as well on what is their perception, with managers, what is their perception. And all that work was narrowed down to real, very simple terms on the people manager side of looking at the three pillar model of career and coach, and looking and kind of guiding them on that particular aspect as well. So we looked at this, and then we said, okay, this is what good looks like, and also drilling it down. Even there, we said, if you are, if this is the behavior that you exemplify, how should your team see it? What should your team see, and how should they feel as well? So drilling down at these three pillars as well with the managers. That's how we define what good looks like for them.
And I'm always into very like practical things. So like, how did you implement? I mean, was it like we make like PowerPoint presentations, we bring people into groups, we put it on Notion? Like, how did you share?
Number one is we looked at putting all the resources together. So we looked at number one, as I mentioned, defining what a good manager for OLX is. So that's the first message, that this is what good looks like for OLX. The second one is ensuring that we can make it sit where it is supposed to be. So that's the accountability part, ensuring that we actually add it to the goals of every people manager. So it did sit with a 5 to 10% weightage in everybody's goal sheet. The third is ensuring that managers and their managers are aware of what kind of data points that we look at, right? In that, so if you're talking about retention rate, if you're talking about goal setting, IDP, individual development plans, etc. So that was the third thing. The fourth is looking at communication and one way of communication, and last is enablement. Now, how did we drive this? Number one is we really didn't want this to be an initiative that is only driven by HR. If it comes out to be as any other product from HR, the adoption wouldn't have been as we saw. We wanted our leadership to drive it, and that's where we launched it with the communication from our CEO himself at that particular point of time. How did we then go about settling this with the managers is doing some road shows, again, with the leadership there. So we would spend about 15 minutes with a PowerPoint presentation on talking through the context, and then actually have a fireside chat with one of our C-suite members, and we would ensure, and they also did it voluntarily, they completed some of the trainings themselves before that session. So they would have gone through 70% of the manager capability framework, and then we would talk to them about their experiences. Why do they think that it's important, etc.? So that's how we drove these virtual roadshows, about 3 or 4 of them from different functions, and then started settling this down and saying, hey, now we are tracking the completion of the framework, completion of the training modules. How are you interacting with the newsletters, et cetera, et cetera? So that's our first launch initiative that we did in the month of July and August last year.
Wow. And well, I have a few questions, but in terms of the enablement activity, so you did roadshows and workshops. You mentioned also you did some AI coaching. And how have you seen, I mean, AI is everywhere. How have you seen that implemented in your company?
We started from, I would say it was first, Sylvie, it was real basics of what a people manager needs to know. Again, if you ask certain managers, how do we hire an engineer in OLX, they would have different answers. They wouldn't really know. So number one is going back to the basics on really laying down how is hiring done in OLX, how is onboarding done in OLX, what is P2 performance appraisals in OLX, what is a reward policy, etc. So that's one area which was like a learning path given to the managers. The second was something where we looked at enabling the managers across certain other training programs, be it situational leadership, adaptive leadership, etc. Again, certain digital learning support that we provided. The third aspect was experimentation with our AI coach. So our parent company has worked on and come up with a LLM-based model. It's called Process AI Assistant. And one of our team members at that point of time, Alexandra, actually thought about using that and coming up with a use case for an AI coach for managers. We ran a pilot for a month, humongous adoption, great feedback also for the AI coach. Couple of things that they said. Number one, because it's one-on-one, so they're not apprehensive asking any question. They know that it's confidential. So you sometimes, if I think, do I sound stupid asking this question? And I don't, because it's a bot, right? So I don't really care about that. Second, it's available anytime, so I don't have to wait for my HR business partner to really wake up and give me a response, and I can ask a question anytime, and I can further drill down as much as I want. And there's the world's knowledge out there. So I think these couple of feedback was really, really good. And people started taking to it immediately once we launched. So after the trial, after that practice period, then we went for a complete manager-wide launch. We also did some road shows with our leaders, got them a little bit more excited about this. Initially, we thought it'll be a challenge, but when we saw the data coming from the usage of the assistant as a coach, we actually saw our commercial managers using it more than our tech managers were using it. And earlier we thought that would be a challenge, but no, it was not. They really took very well to it. And now this year, our plan is to move towards an AI Coach 2.0, where we can drill some of our, like I said, we had set some training programs, but whatever data is available in these training programs, we also want to drill it OLX specific information into this bot, so we can have more specific responses going to the managers as well.
Yeah, that's just fascinating because, we always wonder, how are we going to feel about AI coaching? I don't know if you saw, like in The Guardian, they did some articles about AI, almost like psychologists, and the advantage that, you wake up at 2 a.m. just feeling a pit in your stomach and you can connect. And even though it's a robot, it still really solves the problem of having someone to talk to in the moment that you need to. And how have you seen, so after launching this whole thing, you've done it with managers, you started to ladder it down into the teams. How have you seen engagement evolve and change? And have you, even from a subjective feeling from your seat, sensed like a change in the culture and the mood?
I think yes. So numbers kind of really speak for itself. Through the process, and like I shared, that we have these mini pulses, we've seen a consistent increase in engagement. So it's not something that just happened overnight. Consistent increase in engagement through those mini pulses. And in March, when we went for the big engagement survey, we saw an uptake of plus 11 on our Europe engagement as such. And when we look at the manager, my manager entire bucket, that is actually beyond the industry benchmark. It's above a 90. And overall, even our engagement results are beyond the industry benchmark of by 4, as per our platform Culture Amp, where we kind of conduct the survey. And it's interesting because when they came back with feedback, they said most of the organizations in this bucket have actually gone down or dipped in the engagement. And you've stood out as a positive outlier. They've been close to the initiatives that we've had, and this particular part of manager capability has really played a very, very big role in getting these engagement levels up in the organization for sure.
Yeah. No, that's amazing results. And we know, focusing on managers and investing, in people makes all the difference. How do you feel about the role of HR in an organization? One thing that always frustrates me is that, it's a good thing and a bad thing, but that we need leadership. If an initiative comes from human resources, it doesn't take it in the serious way, where of course, every organization says our people are at the heart of what we do. I don't know. How do you see things changing, and how do you as a HR leader, adapt to this frustration that you're doing, God's work, and yet you need a messenger?
I love that one. Yeah, we are doing God's work. I think it's interestingly a little bit of a field where we haven't really created the knowledge as well. HR is still seen as a police organization for most of the lot, right? So whenever something comes from HR, it's always seen with a little bit of a doubt, a little bit of a, what data are they collecting? Are they going to make any decisions based on this data? And unfortunately, the last year and a half has not helped us in this cause as well as as a community. So I think more and more, once we move towards the initiatives where we are very closely working with business, then they see the partnership clearly. And that's when, you have the apprehensions and the guards down from people. I think that's something that we'll have to work more on, talking more about. Now it's a great space. You have speakers like Josh Person or Lars Smith and so on and so forth, really talking on innovation in HR. Gone are those days when we only talk about HR laying down policies and just doing your performance management and so on and so forth. It's much more than that. It's owners of cultures, etc. Today we are sharing our goals with our tech leaders in the organization, right? There's organizations where we are sitting in the driver's seat when we are talking about Gen AI transformations. That's the view that we need to give our employees as well, externally and internally, and then probably get that Phoenix feeling of revival as a trust factor from our employees in the organization.
Yeah, and actually, as you say that, when I think of organizations really adapting AI in their day-to-day, your AI coach is amazing. And it's a way, it's almost like HR's role to help put these tools into the day-to-day of employees. Because some of them, of course, it's how to do your job, but it's also how does AI just become part of our normal work. And in fact, the tech team isn't going to do that because they're building the product. The sales team isn't going to do it. Really, it has to be our HR partners to change that culture.
Absolutely. And it's all about the change of mind shift today. It's the mindset change of number one, demystifying this world, right? There's this Schrodinger's cat feeling of will AI come and take all our jobs on one hand? So demystifying the whole fact, what is Gen AI? What are LLMs, right? How do they take part in your workflows today? How can it actually help you amplify, augment, and increase efficiency rather than taking people's jobs, etc.? So I think this whole demystification is something that HR and talent steps in and takes the charge for the organization.
That's amazing. And so then just to finish up, maybe you could tell us what's on your strategic horizon for the rest of this year and going into 2025.
A lot of exciting things. And since we were talking about the Gen AI aspect, I think that's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to. And that's also something that I share with the CTO of the organization this year, is getting our organization on the Gen AI journey. So starting with leaders, ensuring that the leaders also play a role model behavior on adopting, trialing Gen AI and getting them into workflows. But for the rest of the organization to come closer. For example, we have technology as a part of our organization. We also have business and commercial for them to come closer, understand what does Gen AI do? How do we use it today for our customers? And how can we actually start using it in our regular workflows in the days to come? So this definitely is one of the strategic bits. On top of this, because there's a lot of, I wouldn't say that AI will take our jobs, but it will automate certain parts of our jobs. And it will definitely take on certain skills that can be automated. When that happens, what becomes very important is the human skills to amplify and really work on the character skills and human skills. And I think being the owner of talent, that's the second strategic bit for this year, to work on the skill-based movement towards talent management, to start the journey for the organization also on that. So these are the two big things that I'm really excited about for us this year.
Well, amazing. Well, thank you for sharing all this with you, and we'll be happy to see how engagement keeps rising up and to the right at OLX. So thank you so much, Manjuri, for your time.
Fingers crossed, Sylvie. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Talent is Everywhere. Make sure to subscribe if you like what you heard, and give us a follow on LinkedIn to continue the conversation on all things career mobility and talent development. Is there a topic you'd love for us to cover in a future episode, or a guest you'd recommend? Drop us an email at hello@lynxeducate.com. And if you're looking for support on your talent development strategy, head over to lynxeducate.com to learn more about our career mobility solution. That's lynxeducate.com.